for coming in today. We just love the Cosmere story, such a fabulous history and products, and we just thought we might come in and find out a bit about where you started and everything. So can you tell me a bit about the backstory of Cosmere?
Absolutely. While I was very, very young, even at a teenage age group, I was actually mixing up my own concoctions. So I loved, putting together, masks made out of avocado and yogurt and honey. And I used to, experiment on my girlfriends and on myself. And as I was growing up in my early 30s, I was mixing a facial mask, and the recipe called for rose hips, but I never had any growing in my garden. So I decided to go to the local rose farm and ask them if I could pick their rose hips so I could actually put them in my mask. And they gladly said yes, and then they handed me an editorial which was out of a rose magazine that talked about rose hip oil in South America and how they were using it in burns clinics and scar management clinics and for after sun care. So I instantly forgot about picking my rose hips and I just got so engrossed in this article, and I call it my light bulb moment, because I thought I've got to get home and find out where I could get hold of some of this oil from, because I've got to get that out into the marketplace. So I drove home, and back in 1993, we never had, mobile phones or the internet. So I found out that I could go to the Yellow Pages in the city, and that would actually, it's a Telstra office, and it gives you every country of every Yellow Pages. So I found the Chilean Yellow Page and found the supplier of rosehip, drove back home, photocopied the page, bought myself a fax machine and a typewriter, an old typewriter, the old ones with the little round, keystrokes. And then I typed up a fax in Spanish and sent it to them and asked them if I could buy some rosehip oil. And they wrote back and said, look, your Spanish is pretty bad. Our English is better than your Spanish, so you can please communicate in Spanish. So I asked them if I could buy a drum of rosehip oil, and they gladly said yes. But it was a lot of money back then, and I convinced my husband to sell the family car and swap it for a drum of rosehip oil.
All from an article
All from an article out of a rose farm.
That's a good light bulb moment.
It is, very much so. And I guess for myself, being a mum of 3 and my youngest was a year and a half old, I didn't really have marketing experience, but what I did have was passion and belief that this rosehip oil will work, and I've got to get it in the hands of every consumer. So that was the exciting part.
When you got the drum, had you not even tried the product itself yet?
No, I just believed that it was going to be good.
That's amazing.
Because I'd read so much, all the good article about it, that I thought, and I remember as a child being brought up on rosehip syrup. So our mums gave us that for the vitamin C content, not realising that it was full of sugar. But still you have a good affiliation with rosehip.
So you got the drum home. What next? How did you get it out there?
Good question, Yelena. Yeah, we actually, after we bottled it and designed the label, and when had all the packaging done, basically I bought myself an old bomb and got myself a beautiful suit and went out cold selling into the health food stores. They were my first test to market. And when I walked into the health food store, I gave the owner a free bottle of rosehip oil, because I knew that if he or she used it, they would get fantastic results instantly, and then they would be my spokesperson of selling the product, in the store, which is what actually happened. So health food stores were the first port of call, and then followed by pharmacies.
And so were you the first rosehip oil in Australia?
Yes, we are. We're the first rosehip oil, 1993, and then we had obviously other brands bring out rosehip oil.
And was it an overnight success? Like, did you you got it out there, and then what happened next?
So it was an overnight success because it was a product that instantly worked. So within a week of somebody using our rosehip oil, they got results, and they were getting comments on their skin, how beautiful their skin looked, and what they were doing had they been on holidays. So the word spread quite quickly. And then as we actually grew, we did a little bit of advertising in the Sunday Mail. And so we got the word out there more, and then we developed the markets in other states, Victoria and Sydney and Queensland and so forth.
And so I'm presuming you moved from doing it at home in the backyard with the labels and stuff. Do you
Yes.
start getting manufacturing out in Australia, or how did that kind of work, that process?
Absolutely. We grew too big out of making it out of our kitchen, yes, and our dining table. And then we finally found a manufacturer that could bottle the product for us because we grew very, very quickly.
Oh, brilliant. And are you still getting the drums sent from the original manufacturer overseas?
No, because in 2001, 2002, we found a supplier of rose hips in Africa.
Yeah.
So our rose hips now grow wild in Africa, in Lesotho, and they're hand-picked by communities. So it grows naturally in the natural rainfall, it's hand-picked, and then it's sold to us as a company, and then we supercritically extract our rose hip, which actually gives us up to 10 times more vitamin A than any rosehip oil on the market.
Amazing. So is that kind of how you position yourself differently from your competitors?
Yes, we're miles ahead of any of our competitors because, like I said, we independently test their rosehip oil and our rosehip oil with an independent laboratory, and we come back with results up to 10 times more vitamin A content.
Beautiful. And how closely do you work with the formulators on producing these products?
Very closely. I'm actually part of the R&D team
Yeah.
because that's my passion, is putting together formulas,
Yeah.
but not university trained, trained by the universe.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess so.
Like when you were young and doing your potions in the kitchen.
Exactly. It's a little bit like cooking. You know,
Yeah.
when you make a recipe, the first time you'll do it to the recipe, and then the second time and the third time you'll start to experiment. And that's what I do with the Cosmea formulas. And I challenge the chemists. Because they say to me, you know, we might as well rip up our degree because you defy all of chemistry with what you want us to put in the formula.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you come out with these amazing products.
Exactly
so
right.
It's working.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how long does it take you from an idea to, you know, a finished product?
It's usually about 12 months in the process of, you know, coming up with the idea and then working through the R&D side of it, and we end up getting a prototype up to about 23, 24 before we actually get it right. Because there's a lot of testing involved as well. Yeah.
And just lastly, where do you see Cosmea heading in the future?
Well, we're actually an international company now, and our export has grown very much. So we are developing our export markets very strongly at the moment, and particularly the Asian markets, because at the moment Australian natural skincare is the flavour of the month for Chinese. Yes.
Oh,
So.
brilliant. Well, thank you so much for coming in. It was so lovely to hear the story from you, and such an amazing brand and product. So
My
thank
pleasure.
you.